Did you know that the average 5-year-old cannot identify shapes and colors, and that directly impacts their ability to read and write? If you didn't know this, I want to take the time to introduce you to the Color Club podcast, Ep.1, where we're going to take time to talk about the declining literacy rates in our country and also to discuss some solutions that we can do to counteract these things for elementary school students and set them up to succeed in the future. Before I get started, I want to encourage you to follow, like, and subscribe to this channel. My name is Chanel Harrison, and I am an artist and educator dedicated to creating activity books that help students identify shapes and colors so they can become better readers and writers. I want to start by giving you all some stats so you can understand the drastic effect of declining literacy rates and why this matters, some of the solutions that we can provide, but then also, again, understanding how this drastically impacts the transition from childhood to adulthood and what that looks like for us moving forward. 25% of the world's population is between the ages of 0 and 14. It is set to peak in 2050 with 2.6 billion children in the world. 21% of adults in the US are illiterate. This means that 21% of adults in the United States cannot read and write. Okay? Just so we're all clear what illiterate means. There are 43 million adults in the country. And if 21% of adults in the United States are illiterate, that means about 9,030,000 of them cannot read and write. 65% of American fourth graders are not reading at a proficient level. 72% of students are likely to have a low reading level whose parents have low literacy skills. So thinking about those 9,030,000 adults who may have children are also passing down those same literacy skills to their kids. Globally, 250 million children lack basic literacy skills. Girls are more likely to learn how to read than boys are. I hope you all understand that this starts early, and 1 out of 3 children lack basic literacy skills by the 3rd grade. This is something that deeply concerns me as an educator because I see firsthand how we lack accountability when it comes to providing the tools that are necessary for our students to learn and grow as readers and writers. Many of us would rather throw an iPad or a screen at a student or a child before we sit down and read a book to them before they go to bed. And I want to pose this question to you all. What are we reinforcing with our students when we do this? We are reinforcing that reading is not as important as screen time. We are reinforcing that writing is not as important as the Netflix episode. We are reinforcing that education is not a priority and thus providing a clear road to children being a part of that 21% of adults who are illiterate today. We are contributing directly to the problem of why our literacy rates are declining with our children. We are becoming lazy with their education, and it needs to stop. Let's get into the 3 main reasons why literacy rates are declining. And these are the main reasons that I think personally. And I know a lot of us may be thinking, yes, technology, like AI, right? Like, and I feel like that contributes for sure. But then I would ask on the flip side, what about those of us who can read and write, who are using AI as a tool for like business, etc., And so the 3 main reasons, with reason number 1, are a lack of resources for families. So a lack of resources for families could look like a student who, picture a student who comes to school every day, maybe doesn't have the materials they need, like pencils, paper, calculator, all those things. And when they get home, they are concerned with where they're going to eat, what they're going to eat. So the lack of resources are not just about, not having the materials. It's oftentimes associated with where that student is living and what's accessible around them as well. What social resources do they have? A lot of times in neighborhoods where students lack resources, there aren't public resources like libraries. There aren't public resources like churches. And so if you're in an area that is a food desert, but also a resource desert, you cannot expect for a student to have access to the same things that the average student who may have grown up in the suburbs with access to a library right down the street and computer access, all of these other things. That is a luxury. And I think that a lot of times we forget that everybody doesn't have the luxury of education, of being able to walk down the street and go get a book. You've seen all those, those, and I love these. I when I get my house, I will be putting one in front of my house. But those little, those free libraries, like that people put like little mailboxes and everything, where you see a book, you take a book, you leave a book. I love those. I think that we should have more of those in areas that do not have resources. So that being said, lack of resources for families. If I'm worried about where I'm getting my next meal, I'm not thinking about, trying to read a book. That's not on the top of my list here. It's just not. And I think that is why I also want to make sure you all understand that it's not just about not being able to read books. If you're not learning shapes and colors at a young age, at like the age of 3 and 4, that directly impacts your reading skills. That directly impacts your brain development. That directly impacts your child's ability to become a better reader and writer. And so you have to understand the importance of all of this. One of the reasons why I create or I have the Curious Colors book series is to help them master these things. It is to be an affordable resource for students who don't have resources, and for all students. Reason number 2 and 3, and all of these go hand in hand with each other. So lack of resources for families, lack of exposure to books, and a lack of parent talk. And so lack of exposure to books, it was going along with what I was saying earlier with when you're in a resource desert, you oftentimes don't have those things like the free libraries that are in front of homes. You oftentimes do not have access to libraries that have computers and have periodicals and videos and tutors and access to study rooms, like things like that we take for granted oftentimes because we are living in a city or a town that has these things, right? So a lack of exposure to books. A lot of kids, their first experience, the average kid, their first experience with books is when they go to school, So if you have a kid that doesn't officially start to read books and learn triangles and learn, squares, learn about shapes and colors and lines until they get to pre-K, you're already setting them up for failure because you're essentially saying, I'm not going to teach you anything until you get to school. Or I'm not even going to teach you anything. I'm going to leave it up to the teachers. And us as educators, we know, like I'm going to tell you here, like, and parents that are listening, I'm going to tell you right now, there are so many educators who don't take their job seriously. So you better hope, look, you better hope, and I will say pray, that you have a good group of teachers teaching your child. If you're leaving it up to the system, good luck. If you're, okay, every educator is not going to be an educator like myself that goes above and beyond to make sure students are good, to make sure, okay, I see an issue in the public school system. Let me go create a book. Let me go create a children's brand. Let me go create Curious Colors and create activity books that help students master shapes and colors. No, I saw a need. I definitely saw a need. I saw students who were having issues with retention. I taught elementary school. Okay, I taught elementary school, and by the time I was teaching pre-K through fifth grade, and my fifth graders did not know basic color theory. Okay, color theory is like how colors mix to make other colors. So you know your primary colors, red, yellow, blue. How do those colors mix to make other colors? If you are not understanding that in fifth grade, in fourth grade, you don't know directional line, meaning how lines are diagonal, how lines are horizontal, how lines are vertical. Those are fundamental things in creating language structure and in writing. What's a B? Like the letter B. A B is nothing but a vertical line in two circles. These are things that kids learn in their early education years, their fundamental years. Again, remember those numbers. 85% of brain development, 85% of kids' brains are developed by the age of 3. 85%. So the rest of the 25%, we just throwing darts. We're trying to figure it out, right? It's important to have a plan. It's important to educate your kids and reinforce those things outside the classroom. You cannot wait until your kid gets to elementary school and say, the teacher's got it. We good. We just go to work now. No, because what's going to happen is if you leave it up to the system, your kid, it's like playing, it is like gambling. Your kid could either be, super smart, super literate. Your kid could be, the best writer and researcher and writer. Could be again, could, a lot of could there. Or they could be a part of the 21% of adults in the U.S. who are illiterate. Pick your choice. But you can't have both. And again, if you're just throwing your kid at the system and saying, hey, like, here you go, teacher, do your work. It's helpful because, again, you have a lot of teachers who are doing great work. Shout out to them. A lot of after school, guardians as well. A lot of programs that are set up for your kid to succeed. But you have to care. You have to care more than I care as an educator. And I think the issue is that we have a lot of parents who just don't care anymore. Like, it's a different kind of generation. We're not the generation that is rooted in community anymore. We don't believe in community learning. I say we. I think a large majority. This is not just a one size fits all issue. Okay, this is not just a white issue, a black issue. It's a Hispanic issue, an Asian issue. Like, this is across the board, y'all. And I can give y'all those stats. Okay. According to Prosperity for America, of those with poor English literacy skills, 35% are white. 2% of them are non-American born. 23% are black. 3% are non-American born. 34% are Hispanic. 24% are non-American born. And 8% of all other races and ethnicities. Now, if I happen to find more stats that give us an even more detailed breakdown, because this is not even considering when we do the Census Bureau and some people check off as white or some people check off as black, etc. But this is like basic numbers for you all, just to get an idea of how this is an issue across the board. And when we're considering the literacy rates, again, those who cannot read and write, illiterate, being illiterate, you cannot read and write. Out of those, 34% account for adults with low literacy skills, meaning the adults that are maybe reading on a third or fourth grade level. That's a low literacy level rather than the 21% of adults who are illiterate. Okay, so these are the poor literacy rates that I just gave you. So 50% of adults struggle to read books that are appropriate for 8th grade, and 3 out of 4 welfare recipients are illiterate, which I gave you all those numbers a little bit earlier. So in talking about the 3 main reasons, lack of parent talk is, again, that reinforcing, coming home and you're reading to your kid, you're going out and you're going to libraries, you're talking to them about their day, you're having productive conversations, you're asking them to write you things, things of that nature, where they can show you their skills and you can help them early on. But again, if you are unable to, if you're unable to do it yourself, it's hard to then help your kid. And I want this to be very, very clear. This podcast is not to shame anybody. So I don't want anybody like listening and then going back and being like, yeah, I tried to tell you, like going back and telling your students or telling your parents that you have whatever. Or if you're a parent, like going to shame other parents. This is not about shaming. This is about awareness. This is about making you all aware of the numbers and how bad it is. And often like making sure you stay focused when you're tired and you're like, I don't feel like teaching little Johnny a book today, like staying consistent. And then also reaching out to other kids and helping them and not shaming other adults as well, because they may not know something. And the reality is a lot of adults don't know anything. I'm still learning every day. There's always some way to improve something. So let's talk about the impact on the economy. 20% of United States people read below the level needed to earn a living wage. 50% of unemployed people are ages 16 to 21. I mean, granted, 16 to 18, okay, 16 to 21, you're probably still in school. You're probably still figuring stuff out. Like, I don't know if these numbers are accounting for that. So again, take that with a grain of salt. Due to the inability to read, 46% to 51% of Americans have an income level below poverty. So, we're not talking about the people who are, who are blessed to, they're in corporate or something, or like, the Yale grad who comes out and maybe they have a job in like tech or something, whatever. Great, awesome, amazing. And we know that just because you go to college doesn't mean you're smart. We know that just because you go to college doesn't mean that you should be, but sometimes those individuals are not on a proficient reading level either. But at the same time, we're talking about the person who may have dropped out of school or may not have, or may have graduated high school, but again, is still not on a very good reading or writing level to gain the job that they really need to survive. That's what I'm saying here. And so enough of, we went into the problems. We went into why they are a problem. And now I just want to talk to you all about like some solutions, because we got to have solutions if we're going to talk about this problem. And for me, a big part of what I do is create engaging activity books that help students master shapes and colors in a fun way, so that they are able to develop stronger visual processing skills to build their vocabulary and become better readers. AKA, I build fun activity books to help you learn how to read and write. To help you learn how to draw and write. Draw shapes, identify shapes, and write. So that is my solution. Now, the solutions nationwide, when I researched this, what we believe the solutions are early childhood education programs. So that being one of them, mine, but others as well. Being aware. Read to your child 3 times a week. This is what I call RPE. Read, provide, encourage. Okay. Read to your child 3 times a week. That reinforces the same things that they're learning in school, and also reinforces a joy and love for learning and reading. Provide informal reading tools. And I just want to backtrack really quickly, because if you're unable to read to your child at least 3 times a week, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, and something that's easy to start implementing today is maybe reading a story to them. Maybe in the mornings you all listen to a nice podcast together. Maybe in the mornings you read a prayer with them, or you read something like a storybook to them before they go out the door. And yes, that requires your commitment as a parent to wake up early. Yeah. But You know you're taking the reins, and you're making sure that they don't become the 21% of adults in the US who are illiterate, who can't read and write. And, for teachers, something you can implement. I love story time. You have the rug, you sit around in a circle and you read to your students. Maybe you take turns. You have them read. You pass around, you have your students read to you. Learning hour, having like a learning corner in your classroom with like a beanbag chair and like maybe like a little table where they can have books, and during free time they have access to go over to that table and read. That's something I do in my classroom as an art teacher, or have done in the past, where I have real world issues on the table. So like more so aligned with art stuff appropriate for kids, but stuff that's happening in the art world, and we have a conversation about it. I tell them how crazy the art world is. I'm like, y'all think that it's wild here? Like, look at what's going on in the art world right now. They're putting bananas up with duct tape like it's theater. It's it's insane. So they know. So that leads me to my point about providing informal reading tools. So we're again, read, provide, encourage. Provide informal reading tools, not just the academic stuff. Give them things that can relate to what they're going through in the world. Because if they're reading things or seeing things on social media, they're gonna have questions. Kids are naturally curious. Kids are not naturally want to understand the world. They're going to come to you with questions. And you can't be that kind of educator or parent that is just like, well, I don't know, because you're frustrated and you don't have the answer. Like, just have a dialogue. Hey, yeah, I don't know, but we can figure this out together. Give them informal reading tools, activity books, maybe even crossword puzzles. Those are fun too. Encourage your child to choose what they read. That goes along with providing informal reading tools. Choosing what they read within reason. Going to the bookstore, going to the library. Maybe your kid has an interest in cooking, and you start giving them cookbooks to read, so they learn and memorize those recipes. And every week you get them the ingredients to do that recipe. If it's, if money's a factor, they are researching or learning these things from like old, you go to the thrift store and you can get books for $2, $3, something cheap. A lot of times thrift stores are giving away books for free. A lot of times you can find free books at those at like book sales, or people's backyard, why can't I think of the name of them, but like garage sales. Things like that. So there are plenty of resources, even now in Chicago. I can't remember the name of the place, but yes, there is a bookstore called Books for Cause in Chicago, and they give free books. I think you can take up to 10 a day, or a week, but look for local resources in your area that are like that. And that one is about 15 minutes away from me, 20 minutes away, by bus, or about 10 minutes by car. So something like that. These resources do exist. And if you're listening to this, and I'm hoping you're feeling inspired by it, start your own. It can start small. It doesn't have to be something that, is grandiose or large, a big scale. It doesn't have to be something that automatically just takes over. It can be something small, like what I'm doing here, just providing you all the stats on the Color Club podcast. And I'm hoping to continue doing this. So thank you all for tuning in today. And some things that you can do to support this podcast and this movement, the Color Club podcast, is follow, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am going to be posting these on YouTube only for now. I don't know if I want it to be, something that I post on Apple Podcasts, etc., but it will be something that will be exclusively on YouTube right now. And you can also follow our Instagram page, our Curious Colors Instagram page. That is at Curious Colors Book. And if you are interested in receiving children's books, either for your classroom or even purchasing them for your active learner and helping with their mastery of shapes and colors so that they can become better readers, you can go to www.curiouscolorsbook.com and you can access our activity books there, our downloadables, and also our physical copy books as well. So Thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Chanel Harrison. I'm an artist and educator dedicated to improving the literacy rates of our children through activity books that help them become better readers. If this inspired you, if you enjoyed hearing my first episode today, please leave a comment below on your experience with this. And also, if there is anything more you would like to hear about this topic or in our next episode, please leave a comment below. I look forward to connecting with you soon. Until then, until next time, be safe and spread love and color.